Dear students, good morning. We shall see the poem Snake by D.H. Lawrence. I am Dr. Joy Christina, Research Supervisor and Assistant Professor, Secretariat College, Tirupattur. Now let's see about the poet D.H. Lawrence. He was born in a small mining town in England on 11 September 1885. D.H. Lawrence is regarded as one of the most influential writers of the 20th century. Lawrence published many novels and poetry volumes in his lifetime, including Sons and Lovers and Women in Love, but is best known for his infamous novel Lady Chatterley's Lover. We are now going to see about the poem. This poem was probably written by Lawrence in 1920 in Sicily. It was published in the year 1923 as part of his collection of poetry entitled Birds, Bees and Flowers. Now we shall see the setting of the poem. Setting of the poem Snake. This poem is set in the poet's backyard where there is a water trough. When the poet goes to the trough to fill a pitcher with water for his own use, he encounters a snake which has come to the trough before him. The entire poem revolves around this very encounter. The poem consists of 19 stanzas of variable lengths. Each stanza is the number of lines differs from each. The entire poem consists of 75 lines in total. A snake came to my water trough on a hot day, and I in my pyjamas for the heat to drink there. In this stanza, let's see the explanation. The poet describes how it was a typical summer and how he had been wearing pyjamas in order to cool himself. Again, in order to keep cool, he had gone to fetch water from his trough, but found that a snake had reached before him. The second stanza, let me read it. In the deep, strange, scented shade of the great dark carob tree, I came down the steps with my pitcher and must stand and wait, for there he was at that trough before me. So here the poet describes how the trough was kept in the shade of a large carob tree and how that entire place had a strange smell. When the poet reached with his pitcher, he has to stand and wait for the snake to finish drinking. Now, the next stanza. He reached down from a fissure in the earth wall in the gloom and trailed his yellow-brown slackness soft belly down over the edge of the stone trough and rested his throat upon the stone bottom. And where the water had dripped from the tap in a small clearness, he sipped with a straight mouth, softly drank through his straight gums into his slack, long body silently. In this stanza, the poet describes how the snake came out of a crack in the wall of his house and how it slithered leisurely over the edge of the trough and finally came to rest with its throat on the bottom of the stone trough. Water had fallen in drops from the tap, forming a small and transparent pool from which the snake drank silently, and the poet could imagine the water traveling through its long, flexible body. Now, the fourth stanza has just only 2 lines. This says, let me quote it. Someone was before me at my water trough, and I, like a second comer, waiting. Here the poet says that generally he was the only one to drink out of his trough. But that particular day he himself was second to reach the trough and he had to wait as a result. He lifted his head from his drinking as cattle do and looked at me vaguely as drinking cattle do. and flickered his two-forked tongue from his lips and mused a moment, and stooped and drank a little more, being earth brown, earth golden from the burning bowels of the earth, on the day of Sicilian July with Etna smoking. In this stanza, the poet describes how the snake stopped drinking at one point and looked at him, in the same way that cattle drinking in ponds sometimes pause between sips. Then the snake moved its forked tongue quickly from side to side, thought for a bit, and continued to drink again. The poet imagines the snake to be Typhon, the mythical and monstrous serpent that was descended from Gaia, and it was finally defeated by Zeus by throwing Mount Etna on it, but that still spews up fire and boulders when the volcano erupts. Now, the next stanza is: the voice of my education said to me, "You must be killed." For in Sicily, the black snakes are innocent, the gold are venomous. Here, the poet explains that while he was in Sicily, he had learned that black snakes will not harm you, but that golden ones are poisonous, so his education told him to kill the golden snake that had come to his trough. Seventh stanza. And voices in me said, if you were a man, you would take a stick and break him now and finish him off. In this stanza, the poet hears voices in his head, goading him on to kill the snake with a stick. From that would prove his masculinity. The stanza 8 goes like this. Let me read the lines. But must I confess how I liked him? How glad I was he had come like a guest in quiet to drink at my water trough, and depart peaceful, pacified, and thankless into the burning bowls of this earth. In this stanza, the poet says that he quite liked the snake and was happy that it had come to drink at his trough like a guest, and then to leave as peacefully as he had come to go back to the depths of the earth from which he imagines it had risen. Was it cowardice that I dare not kill him? Was it perversity that I longed to talk to him? Was it humility to feel so honored? I felt so honored. Here the poet wonders what it was that had stopped him from killing the snake. Whether it was because he was a coward or because he has some unnatural affinity with the snake. In the end, he concludes that it was because he felt honored to have him visited by the snake. The 10th stanza, and yet those voices, if you were not afraid, you would kill him. In this stanza, the poet again hears voices telling him to conquer his fear and kill the snake. The 11th stanza goes like this. And truly I was afraid, I was most afraid, but even so honored still more that he should seek my hospitality from out the dark door of the secret earth. In this stanza, the poet confesses that he was very scared of the snake, but more than that, he was honored. The snake had chosen to come only to the poet's trough while making its journey out of the earth's crust. Here in the next stanza, the lines goes like this. He drank enough and lifted his head dreamily as one who was drunken, and flickered his tongue like a forked knife on the air, so black, seeming to lick his lips, and looked around like a god, unseeing into the air, and slowly turned his head, and slowly, very slowly, as if thrice a dream, proceeded to draw a slow length curving round and climb again the broken bank of my wall face. Here, the poet describes how once the snake had finished drinking, It lifted its head slowly and made quick movements of its tongue, as if it were licking its lips in satisfaction that its thirst had been quenched. He then looked around as if it were lord over all the land, and slowly turned its head and then its body to begin its ascent over the crack in the wall from which I had come. The 13th stanza, let me read it. And as he put his head into that dreadful hole, as he slowly drew up, Snake easing his shoulders and entered farther. A sort of horror, a sort of protest against his withdrawing into the horrid black hole, deliberately going into the blackness and slowly drawing himself after, overcame me now his back was turned. In this stanza, the poet describes what he did when he saw the snake putting its head into the crack of the wall and slowly slithered the rest of its body in after that. The poet protests against its leaving and going back into the blackness of the hole. The 14th stanza. I looked around, I put down my pitcher, I picked up a clumsy log and threw it at the water trough with a clatter. Here we see how the poet put down his pitcher, picked up some wood and threw it at the trough in a desperate attempt to stop the snake from leaving the place. Here is the 15th stanza. It goes like this. I think it did not hit him, but suddenly that part of him that was left behind convulsed in an undignified haste, writhed like lightning and was gone. Into the black hole the earth lipped fissure in the wall front, which in the intense still noon I stared with fascination. Here the poet says that he thought the log had not hit the snake, but he was wrong. As a result, the snake speeded up its motion and disappeared into the hole in the wall in a flash like lightning. As the sun was beating down mercilessly, the poet kept looking at the crack in the wall in hell. And the next stanza. And immediately I regretted it. I thought how paltry, how vulgar, what a mean act. I despised myself and the voices of my accursed human education. In this stanza, the poet describes how he was filled with regret that he had acted in such a cruel and petty way with the snake. He hated himself and the education that had urged him to act in such a manner. As we are closing, we are in the 17th stanza, and I thought of the albatross, and I wish he would come back, my snake, for he seemed to me again like a king in exile and crowned in the underworld, and now due to be crowned again. And so I missed my chance with one of the lords of life. I have something to expiate, a pettiness. In this stanza, the poet says that he felt like the ancient mariner from Coleridge's poem of the same name who had killed the albatross for no reason, and he wished that the snake would come back to the trough once again. So my dear students, hope you enjoyed this poem. We shall meet in the next video. Thank you for watching.